important in promoting good educational program. Imagine if they publish a book, they would know that everyone should be receiving a copy for free. That's up to the junior high school. And everyone is provided good educational support in terms of the similarities of all schools all over the country. Of course, you might be surprised that all schools in Japan follow the same standards in terms of the buildings, the preparation of teachers, the grounds, and the support that is provided to the educational needs of the children. So my professor, Dr. Takemura, actually was very supportive in promoting the program of UP NISMED. That's why we now have there the Center for the Training of Science and Mathematics Teachers as part of the UP NISMED's program. My professor used to tell me the story that the first time she met Dr. Hernandez in the 1980s, they thought of developing that building at UP NISMED. And that actually enabled the sharing of the Philippines and Japan in terms of education.
Doc Manzano,
Yeah.
nilubos ko na po. So ibig sabihin po, maganda yung kanilang curriculum design.
Yes.
Okay yung implementation, and they evaluate their curriculum. Kasi until from then, mula noon until now, maganda pa rin yung kanilang maganda pa rin yung system eh. So ibig sabihin po, they always revisit, no? The design, ano po ba yung design na ginawa nila?
Okay.
Para maging maganda po yung
Yes, the curriculum of Japan is simply to teach what is necessary. They do not know the content that is given to the children, because everyone should know the basics. That's the principle that they are using in Japan. And when they go to college, that's the time when they specialize. So everyone completes basic education in order to master the necessary skills. And depending on the schools that they are going, when they go to college, then they master what they would be using for their profession. And you might be surprised that the teacher training program in Japan at the college level is simply to provide the teachers the basic skills to teach. And it's up for the education centers to provide them the techniques in teaching. That is actually the secret of Japanese education, the existence of the education centers that trains teachers before they teach in actual schools. So I think we need to have teachers training that are found in education centers.
Sir, permission to speak. Can I ask a question, sir?
Yes.
Sir, a while ago, you have stated no that our curriculum in the Philippines is not actually focused on what we are really expecting. Meaning it is not contextualized, no?
Yes.
Since our education is very Western because we were colonized, especially by the Americans. But as I observe, we are still using the Tyler model
Yes.
in implementing our curriculum. Maybe I don't know. It just came this is just a reflection that we might shift to another model on how to cater the needs of the Filipinos.
Mhm.
Especially, we are considered until now as a third world country or emerging country. So
Yes.
maybe there should be a shift, sir, based on what you are telling us now.
Mhm.
So as a curricularist, so this is how I reflected on what you have shared to us, sir, that we have to
Mhm.
shift now, no, to ju-
Yes.
to be able to cater, especially during this pandemic. The 21st
Yes.
century education was also shifted into another what we call remote learning. So
Yes.
maybe curricularists in the educational system should shift also the way they crafted and the way they plan, and especially in the implementation and the evaluation.
Mhm.
It should come from the root. It it should not come from the upper administrators that are not really affected by what is happening in the field of
Mhm.
teaching.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. There's actually the concept of place-based curriculum. The place-based curriculum theory started in 2007 after the cyclone Katrina in 2005. When we had our conference in the International Association for the Advancement of Curriculum Studies at Chicago in 2007, the place-based curriculum was our topic for discussion. Because in St. Louis, Missouri, the children in the community that was devastated by Cyclone Katrina were actually supportive in bringing back the vibrant community in the localities. So the students, the pupils tried to use the different problems that were caused by the cyclone Katrina. They tried to solve the problems as part of their lessons. So I think the place-based curriculum concept could be one of the keys we should be looking at in promoting education. Of course, the community-based curriculum is considered to be very important because it's suited to the needs of the children. Localization of the curriculum.
Thank you so much, sir, for that sharing to us that's new to me, sir. The place based theories, that theory, sir, or
Okay.
concept or a curriculum.
Yes, yes,
Yes,
place-based
sir.
curriculum.
Sir, can we relate that curriculum also to multicultural education, sir? Since in the Philippines, we have different indigenous people, we have
Yes,
minorities and majorities. So we can contextualize based on that model.
yes, we can.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Hi, Doc.
Okay.
Uh, you mentioned a while ago na because of this Typhoon Katrina, nagkaroon itong place-based curriculum. So
Yes.
I'm contemplating, sabi ko, ngayong pandemic, sabi ko,
Yes.
siguradong may lalabas na bagong curriculum na pwedeng gamitin.
Yes.
Ah, nag-iisip ako kung paano, Doc, eh. Kasi
Okay.
ito, place-based Katrina, place-based curriculum based on Typhoon Katrina. Siguro yung iba po nakakaisip na, no? Nag-iisip kaya ako. Para yun ang gagawin naming dissertation someday. Kaya nga,
Okay.
tatanong ko sana sa'yo, Doc, baka can you give advice? I mean, any ideas or advice na you can give us na malapit na po
Yes.
sulat? Ano po yung maganda
Okay.
looking at the from perspective ngayon na pandemic po?
Okay.
Excited po akong malaman sa inyo kasi ang
Okay.
lawak na ng sinakop ninyo. Inabutan niyo pa pandemic. So, kita
Yeah.
yung changes, Doc. So, I'm really interested.
Okay.
Please po, please enlighten us. Thank you,
Okay.
Doc.
Yes, I will share to you a link. I'll actually give it to Dr. Marasigan. It's about the research that we are doing at a global scale that is headed now by Dr. Marcos of Upstalia University in Germany. We are engaged in three specific concepts. One is digital trust. The other is e-learning. And the third one is actually focused on intuitive decision making. And these are actually related to the programs that are directly related with the pandemic. And now we are trying to design a curriculum for the pandemic in the World Council of Comparative Education Societies. So we are now working with the International Bureau of Education in Geneva, Switzerland. And of course, if you become a member of the World Council of Comparative Education, you could actually have a chance to directly link with the research activities of the International Bureau of Education in Geneva. And of course, we can say that the president now, Dr. Henry Lumumba of the World Council of Comparative Education, is also a science educator. And she's very interested in developing pandemic-related curricula for use all over the world. And so every month we are having a discussion through the web to see how we could develop these pandemic-related educational programs. And one of the solutions we are now thinking is to develop an international baccalaureate program, because now we are actually encountering similar problems related to the pandemic. So this could be a means for us to develop a curriculum that could enable us to focus our attention in helping everyone live well in this kind of pandemic. And in 2018, I actually had the chance to visit Shanxi Normal University, which is actually the place that is located in Xi'an City in China. In 221 BC, the Silk Road that began in China actually started. And of course, the terracotta warriors. Have you seen on video the terracotta warriors that were uncovered in the 1970s in Xi'an City?
Yes po, Doc. Parang,
Okay.
I think I've seen a documentary about it, especially about the first emperor of China po.
Yes.
So I saw them as a part of a complex burial site of the first emperor somewhere in that province po.
Yes. And at that time, Emperor Qin believed that drinking mercury would help him have a long life. That's why at that time, drinking mercury was the advice given to him by his doctor. But at age 50, he died because mercury was drunk by Emperor Qin. And even up to now, they have not actually excavated the mound that kept the burial of Emperor Qin. Because at that time, they were thinking that there is an elixir of life, and they were looking for that elixir to the other parts of the world. And seemingly the belief of the people at that time is now different because mercury is actually poisonous. I hope we could visit the other parts of the Philippines too. Have you visited the different regions of our country?
Yes, sir.
Hindi po
Okay.
lahat, konti pa lang.
Yes, sir.
Konti pa lang po.
Okay. Before I went to Japan, I haven't seen many parts of the Philippines. I only know my province, Pangasinan, and Manila. That's why when I returned in 2000, after 20 years in Hiroshima, I decided to visit every year at least one region. And it was last year that I visited all the 17 regions in our country. And of course, our country is actually very varied. And with the curriculum that we are now having, a national curriculum, I think the regionalization scheme could actually help us provide localized curriculum for the children. That's why teachers that are actually good in developing local curriculum based on the national curriculum is important.
Doc Manzano, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Um, I'd like to know po your insight kasi I'm teaching po in basic education and we have classmates here po who are also in DepEd. So I'm just curious and just like to know your insight po. What do you think po will be the roles of basic ed teachers? Because unlike our classmates, we have very limited linkages. We are moving in a curriculum that is already prescribed to us by our department. So
Yeah.
I'm just curious, what if you would be giving us a piece of advice, what do you think will be the place that we have in this curriculum journey po? Kasi right now, that is also one of the topics that we're discussing after classes na meron ba talaga kaming lugar? Kasi we're basic education teachers. We're not designing a curriculum, but we are here because we find it interesting to understand how do we design curriculum, how do we evaluate it. So do we really have a place in this curriculum journey? Kasi nakikinig po ako and I'm very much inspired with the experiences. But I'm just afraid and I'm just second guessing if as a public school teacher, if I really have a say on this particular undertaking po.
Okay. The material development aspect of the curriculum at present is very important because now we can use a lot of references to develop our own learning materials in our own classrooms. And of course, going back to the language that we are using in our country. Of course, with the mother tongue based multilingual education concept would mean that we need to study different languages before we are actually given the chance to serve the community that we are in. When we try to look at the Japanese society, they only use one language at the time they are born up to the time they become adults, the Japanese language. And of course, we had a long discussion in 2008 about the Goliath Bill and the Gonigondo Bill, which are actually two opposing bills. One that is focused on promoting the mother tongue-based multilingual education, and the other is the use of the English language. That's why in 2008, we tried to discuss about returning the English language that is supported by the Goliath Bill, and of course, using the mother tongue as was supported by the Gonigondo Bill. So in 2008, we actually tried inviting Congressman Goliath and Congressman Gonigondo at the UP College of Education. And at that time, we tried going to the Congress in order to look at the views of the congressman in supporting either of the two opposing bills at that time. But during the forum, the abs- the absence of Dr. Gonigondo and Dr. Goliath was actually not pleasing for us to continue our discussion at that time, because seemingly they are not actually able to express their opinions. And of course, the mother tongue based multilingual education is considered to be one of the solutions of the problems that we are now encountering in Philippine education. But of course, now there are actually a lot of problems related with what language we'll be using in basic education. In Japan, they were able to decide early to select just one language that would be used by all the children all over the country.
Doc, ang Pilipino po kasi very accommodating. Pati sa language, accommodating. Diba? Parang kailangan accommodating tayo sa lahat.
So the mother tongue based multilingual education is probably a good program in our country.
Thank you
Sir,
po, Doc.
Sir, good
Hello,
evening.
Doc. Doc, I have a, sorry. Yes, Ma'am Aleli, it's your turn.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening po, Doc Manzano.
Yes.
I would like to ask lang po, with your extensive knowledge po and experience about Japanese culture and curriculum, do you think po their style of curriculum will be effective also in our context?
What curriculum?
Curriculum in general po.
Yes.
The curriculum in general of the Japanese people.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think po this will also be effective in our context, or should we say we need to change something, our mindset also?
Okay. Comparing Japanese school and the Philippine school, we can actually notice that at the end of the year, we always have the honor rolls in our schools. In the Japanese society, they do not have the honor rolls during the graduation ceremonies, because they say that everyone is serving their country. So once their basic education is completed, they could actually go on selecting their own professions and also serve in the future towards the progress of their country. So the mindset, something that instead of competition, it would be cooperation among the people.
Sir, permission to speak?
Yeah.
Ah, go ahead, Ma'am Annabelle.
Okay.
Ikaw po muna.
Okay, thank you, Ma'am Vicky. So, sir, good evening po ulit. So,
Good
you
evening.
mentioned about the Sustainable Development Goals for globalization. The way I see it, I heard from your experiences in Japanese education. I think they are more on yung focus parang localized and nationalized thinking.
Yeah.
They are really very nationalistic. So,
Mhm.
in many aspects so how are they bridging localized education towards this globalization kasi we are thinking about kapag globalization it's more on international so I'm searching about yung outcomes based education so parang nakita ko doon may isang critic si Dr. Donnelly. So meron silang adaptation before ng outcomes-based education. But later on, nakita nila that on top of doing that education during their international league, international test, they found out that they experience a marked decline of standards. That's why they go back to the one that is tried and through approaches. So doon nakita ko, they are really very nationalistic. So how can they bridge this localized education, very nationalistic sila, but then makikita natin, they are really globally competitive. So how
Okay.
are they bridging that? That's
Yes.
all.
What the Japanese do is actually use the concept of plan, do, see, and improve using the total quality management concept. So everyone is actually involved in promoting good education and they listen to the voice of everyone. So any person in the school, in the community could share what they could actually do in order to improve the education of the children. If you observe the children in Japan going to school, you would note that there is cooperation that is existing in a given community. Like when the children are still young, everyone in the community are involved in helping the children reach the school. The farthermost children from the school would be passing through the homes of the other children until everyone going in a group would reach their school. And that's already cooperation among the young children. And also the existence of the youth centers in Japan. And that's what they call the Seinen no Ie, giving them the opportunity to train traits that could help them promote good society in Japan. Like, for example, the value of time. Imagine I one time attended in 1980, that's my first job stay in Japan. They let us stay also in the youth center in order to observe how they instill among the children the value of time. So they learn the 10-minute, 5-minute movement. It's actually a practice that they instill among the children. That during the 3-day stay in the youth house, the children are provided the opportunity to practice the 10 minutes, 5 minutes movement. So at 6 o'clock in the morning, everyone should start moving to the assembly area. And 5 minutes before the ceremony begins, everyone is already assembled and are ready to begin. And that's a practice for them to instill the value of time. So they have some activities that could instill some good values for the children to master.
Thank you, sir. The way you answer it, sir, no, kanina, your answer is they they are teaching, or the teachers are teaching the basics, and now you are imparting to us that they are more particular on character, on values, the way sobra
Yes.
yung discipline talaga ng mga Japanese. So in
Yes.
doing this, doing the basics and teaching the basics and teaching the value of time, yung cooperation, yung
Yes.
training are some of the ways maybe why Japanese are internationally or internationally competent and globally in.
Yes. And
So very satisfying answer, sir. Thank you.
yes. And also you could we could notice the existence of school education and social education complementing with each other.
Wow. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yes.
Sir, permission to speak, if
Yes.
it's okay. So, as I reflected on what I am hearing now, decolonization in education is very important.
Mhm.
As a social studies major, so
Okay.
yan po yung nakikita kong problem. We have to decolonize.
Okay.
Lobbying is very important for education sector to lobby in Congress. There should be laws that will
Yes.
mandate
Yes.
the education system. Kasi sir, ganun po ang nakikita kong problem. Like for
Mhm.
example, a values education now was being lobbied by PNU professors. Bumalik po ang
Yes.
values education. But
Yes.
what we are looking now, what will be the content, no? That values education will be having again. Kasi baka
Okay.
mamaya, yung values education, it's the same with the values education that we have before.
Okay.
Hindi tayo na decolonize. We are still on the bondage of the Western idea of thinking.
Okay.
Ang mga philosophies natin is always based on Western. We study
Okay.
psychology, but it is based on the psychology of the Westerns. We study
Okay.
history, but we are looking history as written by the victors. So,
Yes.
we have to decolonize. So, ito po yung nakikita ko. This is a challenge to me as a curricularist and a social science major, a history
Mhm.
major, that we have to decolonize education
Okay.
para hindi po tayo naka-focus on sending our Filipinos out to become servants of others. But
Yes.
instead, we have to become Filipinos for our nation. Kasi tinatanong po kanina, that is how localization is. Dapat ganun po
Mhm.
ang localization so that we'll be able to emerge globally po. Not as
Okay.
just servants, but as parang acclaimed people in the world. Yun po kasi ang
Yes.
nakakalungkot. Like for example, in history, pinag-aaralan
Mhm.
natin world history, ASEAN
Yes.
studies, pero ang content, it does not contextualize, and this is not related to the needs of the people today. Bakit po
Mhm.
natin pinag-aaralan yung mga history nila na hindi natin nare-relate sa atin? When we look at the comparison of the ASEAN curriculum, especially in their history, makikita natin naka-context based ang kanilang history.
Okay.
Pinag-aaralan nila ang kasaysayan ng ibang bansa, but it
Mhm.
is related to their values. Ano ang naging
Okay.
epekto nito sa kanilang bansa, pero hindi tayo po kasi hindi.
Mhm.
Ginagawa natin, lalagay natin sa pedestal ang mga Western.
Okay.
Kaya yun po siguro, we have to decolonize. Yes, sir. Thank you
Okay.
so much for the very good insight, sir. Talagang nakatulong po
Okay.
kayo sa akin. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, sir. Especially the place-based curriculum. Thank you,
Okay.
sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, I would like to add something. Kasi yung akin pong mga tita ay mga teachers po sa Japan. You mentioned a
Okay.
while ago about yung teachers training. Dito kasi
Yeah.
sa Pilipinas, the way I see it, yung training natin, halimbawa, teacher ako ng preschool. Yung
Mhm.
training natin parang mga high-sounding terms or high-sounding trainings. Pero sa kanila nakita ko po, kung ikaw ay preschool teachers, talagang they go back to the basic, teaching the preschool talaga.
Okay.
Yung may mga actions, may mga singings, talagang they do more on that. So parang nakikita
Okay.
ko, isa yun sa mga kulang natin. na as ano no, as mga teachers, yung training minsan na ibinibigay sa atin, parang hindi natin siya magamit doon sa field na meron tayo supposed to be. So parang yun ang na-mention nyo kanina, one of the factors is yung teachers training talaga na binibigay sa kanila.
Yes.
Parang mismatch training tayo.
Yes.
Ayan po.
And I hope in the future we could legislate the existence of the training centers by cities or by towns, because these training centers would actually convene the veteran teachers, giving skills to the new teachers. And everyone is given the chance to go back to teacher training anytime they reach some number of years as regular teachers. So the first year of training is given at the time they are just given the teaching position. Then they go back after 2 years or after 5 years, after 10 years, with support from the respective schools. And the education centers are there to help the teachers acquire new skills. I hope that in the future we could visit education centers in Japan, which is actually a good system that they are having in Japan. Education centers.
Okay. Sino pa pong may tanong? Kay sir? Wala na po ba? Oh, sige po. Sino pa po?
Ako satisfied. Satisfied na
Marami
ako.
na po kami natutunan, ma'am. Maraming salamat.
Maraming
Salamat
Marami
po kay Dr.
kaming
Manzano.
ads nakuha.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Manzano.
Ang galing ni Doc.
Okay. I'm happy that I have this opportunity to talk with all of you. And in the future, I'd like you to visit Japan by probably
I will.
January. Yes.
Yeah.
To see the cherry blossoms.
Pwede ba tayong lahat? Just.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course,
Actually,
cherry blossom is very important in the Japanese education, because the cherry blossom actually exemplifies that life is short. And therefore, when life is short, you should use your potential in order to help improve the quality of life. That's why the Japanese enjoy the 1 week long that cherry flowers bloom.
Good evening, Doc. Thank you so much for the wisdom that you have. May I just ask, how can we become members of the World Council for Curriculum and Instruction?
Yes, the World Council for Curriculum and Instruction is actually celebrating this year the 50th anniversary. We're supposed to have a conference in San Diego, California, because it's based in the Alliant International University. And Dr. Matriano is the Secretary General. And Dr. Matriano is now almost 90 years old, but still active. And the World Council for Curriculum and Instruction membership can be easily be achieved by simply submitting an application form to become a member with a $20 membership fee every year. If you want,
Thank you so much.
yes, okay. We will get the application form from the Secretary General.
Thank you, Doc.
Okay.
Meron pa po? So, actually, yun nga po, actually, Dr. Manzano, I ini-explain ko sa kanila, it's difficult to discuss what is curriculum evaluation, how do we evaluate curriculum, and what are the types and kinds of curriculum evaluation. So, like what I have experienced with Dr. Manzano when I was his students, we never discussed that kind of thing in his course. But we talk about a lot of experiences and the application of theory and experiences of how as educator live the curriculum. So it's very beneficial to somehow go deeper into that kind of thing for us to really understand the implication of different events and activities that is happening. So it's really a good opportunity for everybody here to hear the story and sharing of Dr. Manzano. When I was a student, that's my first time to visit Japan. Actually, kung walang pandemic, nasa Japan tayo ngayon.
Yes.
Sa klase niya kasi, ang lahat ng klase niya, dinadala niya sa Japan. And I'm very fortunate enough to have, I think I took 3 courses from him. And lahat yun, ang klase namin ay sa Japan. And we visited schools from kindergarten to graduate school. So that's a very meaningful experience when it comes. If you really want to understand curriculum in a broader and international or global context. So that's it. So basically, that should be the nature of the subject of the graduate students. We are not just confined reading books and concentrating on what's written in the book, but it's more of experiences inside the classroom and outside the country. So yeah, so Dr. Manzano, we would like to thank you for giving us time and the opportunity. Retired na po si Dr. Manzano and I'm very thankful na naging mentor ko siya for, I think it's almost a decade na nagme-mentor siya sa akin up to now. So when it comes to curriculum, that is why even I'm not a curriculum degree holder like what you're doing now, you're taking PhD in curriculum studies or curriculum instruction. I learned a lot and I think I could say my experience is more than a degree on PhD in curriculum and studies or curriculum and instruction. Mentoring, I think more than or almost a decade of one of the Philippines curriculum experts, should I say, because yun nga, sinabi ko sa inyo kanina, he is our country's representative when it comes to Ajax. He also an active member and I think naging president si Dr. Manzano ng World Council of Curriculum Instruction. Dr. Matriano is also a Filipina, okay, at the Alliance University. And now Dr. Caparos now take charge of the WCCI. And the main office, I think it's the St. Paul Pasig and St. Paul Manila. So that's the secretariat. Because before, we used to house the secretariat of WCCI at PNU during the time of Dr. Browner. Unfortunately, it moved to the private institution because, the public university cannot house that kind of organization unless there are certain memorandum of understanding or agreement. So that is why St. Paul Pasig and St. Paul Manila house the WCCI. And now we are trying our best, working my best to house the Comparative Education Society of the Philippines. If not in UP, College of Education, it would be, I hope, at the Philippine Normal University if the management allowed that to happen. So we are still in the process of bargaining. And let's see how far we can go. That's why Dr. Manzano is still active in doing some activities with PNU, with UP, and other universities here in the Philippines. Okay. So with that, thank you so much, Dr. Manzano. I hope will see you in person and
Yes.
learn more about you and about your advocacy and education. Same with Dr. Pedro Urata and the rest of the Filipino educators. Though it's not that so famous, then I think his experience is enough for us to understand the Philippine context of education in a span of, I think, more than an hour tonight.
Yeah.
So, yun lang po at marami pong salamat.
Okay. Good luck in completing all your studies. We'll be calling you soon, doctors. Congratulations.
Salamat, Doc.
Thank you,
Salamat
Thank you so
po,
Doc.
much.
Dr.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
Manzano.
so much
Doc.
po.
God
Thank you
bless.
so
God
much po.
bless.
Thank you,
God
Doc.
bless. God bless. Okay.
Okay, bye po.
Bye-bye. Mhm.
Tapos na po tayo, Doc Arlene.
Wala na si ma'am.
Wala na si Ma'am, umalis na.
Umalis na.
Okay.
Nasa group na namin. Bye, classmates.
Bye, classmates.
Andyan
See
si
you next week.
See you next week. Bye, Dr. Manzano.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye po.
Tapos na.